Is the UK preparing for World War III? What's up, preppers? Welcome back to another video. We are seeing multiple articles across mainstream media and prepper channels saying exactly that. Al Jazeera reporting the UK prepares for war and how much will it cost. iPaper reporting everyone in the UK must prepare for missile attacks, warns top general. The Telegraph saying Britain's biggest companies are preparing for Third World War. Lad Bible even saying official report exposes 5 ways enemies would strike if Britain's in World War III. And of course, we've heard it from Starmer himself saying that we have to be ready for this, that we're going to increase the spending budget, so on and so forth. Now, how likely is it? It's difficult to say at this stage, because usually you'd get these mainstream media articles for a day and then they would disappear with some other news taking over. But this has been ongoing now for several weeks, so we don't really know if this threat is credible. I mean, preparing for missile attacks, it's a nice sentiment, but I don't think that's the immediate threat to us when it comes to World War III. So what is the threat? What should we be looking for? If NATO goes to war with Russia, it would be one of the most serious geopolitical crises since World War II. The consequences for the UK would be profound, and they would come in many forms. The immediate implications, of course, would be based around the military. We would see military mobilisation. The UK would likely mobilise its army, potentially introducing conscription if the conflict escalated into more of a long-term conflict, like we've seen with Ukraine. And with the Ukraine conscription, it started off as a small bracket, then they increased the age bracket and increased it to the point where if you were breathing, you were conscripted. We'd see British forces could be deployed over to NATO's eastern flank along the Baltic states and Poland. Air and sea operations would ramp up all across Europe. Strikes on UK bases, including Russian missiles, but more so cyber attacks, could target key UK military bases, up to and not including Faslane, which is for the nuclear submarines, and Northwood, which is a NATO command base. Of course, we would always be thinking about the nuclear risk in this situation. We would be on high alert. All of the UK's nuclear deterrents, like Trident, would be on high alert, and our forces would be on high alert, being vigilant, looking for this. Evacuation planning could start to leak out to people in extreme cases, like cities like London, Manchester, Glasgow, things like that. Or military hubs may develop evacuation or shelter plans. The psychological impact of nuclear war, of course, could trigger mass anxiety, financial market panic, and mass migration from the cities to the more rural areas of the UK. If this is a long-term ongoing war and that threat is very real for a long period of time, you would see a lot of people selling up in these locations. The question being, who would buy? We as preppers want to look at the civilian impact in the UK. Cyber attacks, I think, is the most prominent one and the most likely one, especially to begin with. The cyber attacks we've already seen are targeting our supply chain, certain supermarkets, things like that. But we could see cyber attacks coming in force and targeting power grids, hospitals, financial systems, transport infrastructure, everything that holds this country together, everything that keeps it ticking over and keeps it moving. Them attacks, there's plausible deniability, there's no collateral damage that Russia has to justify. It is cyber attacks, and I think it's the most likely. We'll see blackouts to not only our power grid, but service interruptions with things like the loss of internet, banking, and utilities. As this ramps up, we could see the government then looking at martial law or enacting emergency powers to keep control and control the information, restrict travel, and manage rationing throughout the UK. We talk about rationing because if they're attacking our infrastructure, especially one that affects our food supply, over 50% of the food on most people's plates has come from an import. So we are not a self-sustaining island at this stage, so rationing would have to take effect. We could see the Civil Defence Corps revived or something very similar, bunkers and sirens being built or being recommissioned, the decommissioned ones, and public preparedness campaigns may return, reminiscent of Cold War periods. We have seen in the last year or so the relaunch of the government's Prepare website. The advice is not sufficient for something to this scale, but it is a step in the right direction, so we could see a lot more emphasis on being prepared, being self-sufficient, and being self-reliant in the UK. All backed up, of course, by the government's favourite tool, the mainstream media. Mainstream media would have state messaging which would increase, potentially with bans on foreign news outlets seen as hostile. And of course, alongside that comes whatever propaganda they choose to spew out of these mainstream media portals. The economic consequences would be pretty quick and pretty severe. Recession or even depression. War with Russia would send global markets into turmoil. The UK economy could suffer from a collapsed pound, skyrocketing energy prices more so than they already are, and stock market crashes. We could also see the sanctions and trade barriers that come alongside a conflict such as this, obviously cutting off our access to Russian gas, oil, and key minerals, impacting UK industries. And we all know with this situation, it wouldn't take long for the public to potentially start panicking. Public unrest, civil disorder, both protests both for anti-war and nationalist protests could break out, especially if conscription or severe hardship is imposed on the people. They will fight back and they will protest if they don't agree with what is going on, no matter which side of the fence you sit on. Information warfare, it is available now. You see it now. We see it all the time at this stage going on with other conflicts. Disinformation campaigns could divide the public, spread panic, or erode trust in institutions. And like with any conflict, we would also see an increase in refugees. The UK could see an influx of refugees from Eastern Europe, but also potential evacuation of citizens from conflict zones abroad. The question is, at the end of the day, how do we prepare for this? Now, I'd love to be able to say, oh, you just need to build a giant bunker and all have your gas masks and all have your NBC kits and survive nuclear war. I don't think that's the case. I don't think we're going to see an immediate conventional war, nor will we see an immediate nuclear war. It's going to be cyber and infrastructure attacks to begin with. Even now, with the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict, it's still military targets and infrastructure targets that are the most prominent targets. So although we may see evacuations from places like London and people moving out of that area because of the risk, I don't think that is going to be one of the key targets, especially to begin with. So we have to prepare for what we call the knock-on effects of war. So don't worry, you don't have to be walking around in your gas mask, living your everyday life, but fully ready for nuclear war. We're talking about the core of prepping, like we've talked about in many videos before. The supply chain is one of the easiest things to be affected from an enemy. So food shortages, we've seen how quickly shelves can empty out during the C-19 times, and we've seen how quickly people will panic buy. So that's going to be the initial one. So getting yourself a good food and water stock is going to be essential. Now, that's not always possible size-wise when it comes to water. So make sure if you don't have the space to store masses of water, then you have the way to filter water, to collect water. You know your local area and know where you can source water from. With the power and the gas potentially being affected not only by cyber attacks, but with sanctions, heating and lighting is going to be a must. It's going to be something you have to prepare now. So ensure if it all disappeared tomorrow, you are able to, for at least a week or so, able to feed yourself, able to drink water, able to keep warm and light. These are key. That is the core of your preps, and that is what you should start with. Start with these sensibly. I'm not encouraging anyone right now to go out and panic buy. Do not go and max out a credit card just to fill up your cupboards. Please do it sensibly. Do it discreetly as well. We talk about OPSEC in the prepper community, and I know it's hypocritical, somebody publishing themselves on YouTube and then talking about being discreet and OPSEC. That's my choice, that's my risk. I live with that. But you yourself, if you're going to go out and spend £1,000 on tinned food and be carrying it all into your house, somebody's going to notice, and that somebody might not be as prepared. So you're just making problems for yourself in the long run. So prep now, prep sensibly, and prep to your means. Do not overexert. This is not a definite. This is happening right now. For me, all the signs are pointing that way. For me personally, I'm in the middle of a house move, so I can't really increase my preps, but as soon as I'm in and set up and established, I'll definitely be making sure everything is topped up if I have time to do so. Remember, the date's announced, the date starts, the date happens. It is too late then to beat the rushes. You will be competing with other people that will then start this panic buy, because it will happen. It will happen on food, it will happen on fuel. We've already had talks of droughts in the UK and how we have water shortages and there's not enough reservoirs, blah, 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 blah. Let's also consider that. What is your backup water supply? What is your backup water filtering method? And everything you need like that. There's lots of other tips and tricks when it comes to World War III, and it all depends how it pans out. But I would really emphasize getting that core of prepping together and getting started that way if you haven't already. And if you're an experienced prepper, if you've already been doing this for a long time, now's a good time to take stock, to note dates on things, to think, oh, I've started to run out of this, best top that up, or just get a little bit of extra on top. Now, if you want to know more details of how to prepare for World War III, on Sunday, the 8th of June, the Preppers Fireside will be live at 8 o'clock with several preppers on there who can give great advice. You can come in, you can ask questions, and we will be discussing this topic in depth on that live fireside. If you're watching this on replay and seeing this after the fact, you can go to the channel, go to the lives and find that date and find that Preppers Fireside to then have a look at them details. We always work best when we work together as a community, so we do the live shows with stuff like that. So not only we can help you the best we can, but you can help us and everyone can help each other. There's always great advice going on the screen and in the live chat. Let's hope it never comes to it. Let's hope it's all just bluster and hearsay at this stage. But if it does go down that route and somebody doesn't back down and it starts to escalate, then it's better to be ready. It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Thanks very much for watching another video. I really do appreciate you getting me to over 9,000 subscribers now, which is absolutely awesome. If you're new and you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. Loads of content with a varied range across survivalism, prepping, community, everything like that, all on the channel and all coming in the next year or so, or for as long as we have internet and ability to do so. Thanks guys, see you in another video. Goodbye.